of one when he said no to plans for a new European treaty setting fiscal rules and harmonising nation-states' budgets. So it must have been something of a novelty for him last night to be joined by the Czech President Václav Klaus. But what is it exactly that Britain is staying out of? 25 of the EU's 27 members have signed up to a new fiscal compact. Under the rules, countries have to balance their budgets, or at least keep their structural deficits below 0.5% of GDP. Failure to meet the rule will trigger an automatic correction mechanism and the possibility of fines of up to 0.1% of GDP, potentially billions of euros. The new pact will be enforced through the existing EU institutions, despite David Cameron saying only a few weeks ago that using them would be wrong. The hope is that the compact will help restore confidence in the future of the Eurozone and prevent another debt crisis. But whether it has the desired effect remains to be seen. I'm joined from Brussels by Martin Callanan, the Conservative leader in the European Parliament. Martin, do you feel let down by David Cameron over this issue of blocking the use of European Union institutions by the new Euro Plus group?
No, I think the Prime Minister was being very pragmatic. He was faced with two fundamental problems. The first one, of course, is that we're in a coalition with the Liberal Democrats, and, you know, as we all know, they're pretty much keen to sign up to virtually everything that Europe produce. The second problem is that in order to stop this, he would have to take legal action, and he'd have to do that through the European Court of Justice. So you'd have to ask the Court of Justice to rule on whether it itself should have the power to do this or not. So it's very complicated legally, could take years. And I think, you know, he's reserving his position, and if there are any attempts to encroach on the single market or anything which affects British interests in the future, then that's an option that remains open to us. So
why was there so much cheering by Eurosceptic Tory backbenchers at the time that this was somehow some great hurrah?
Well, that wasn't the only subject of the veto, of course. What he did was, and has still done, has prevented a whole new section of the treaty being established, which would create the risk of what's called caucusing, which is Eurozone members voting together within the European institutions, and run the risk of damage to Britain's interests in the single market. What this treaty is something which is outside of the EU structures completely.
Now, I mean,
the veto was effective in that respect.
In a sense, I mean, if you look back at some of the quotes that were said, was there ever anything explicit in what David Cameron said after the veto that he was actually ever going to use or say that those institutions couldn't be used to enforce the fiscal deal?
I think there was a number of statements that lead people to imply that that was being said. But ultimately, it was presented as a veto, but actually there was no treaty on the table at that stage. It was a political agreement, so there was no detail to be talked about it. But he made it very clear that he wouldn't be bound by it, and Britain wasn't going to accept it.
So the Liberal Democrats,
I wouldn't just assume that it's only the Czechs that will be against this. There are other countries that also have problems with it. Sweden, for instance, have said quite bizarrely that they will sign it as long as they're not bound by any of the conditions within it. A number of other member states will have to have referenda, they'll have to have approval in their parliaments.
Yes.
I think the list of people that doesn't sign up to it will be a lot greater by the time we get to final ratification.
But the Liberal Democrats were right, really, weren't they? For practical reasons and for them also on an issue of policy and principle, it was the right thing to do. David Cameron's position now is the right way to go.
Well, the Liberal Democrats' position is normally that, you know, whatever's put in front of Britain, we have to sign up for it because we have to be regarded as good Europeans. This influence that we seem to have can never be exercised, otherwise we might lose it. And David Cameron took exactly the right position. He was initially backed by Nick Clegg, of course. This was a position agreed in advance with him, and it was only afterwards that he started getting lobbying by his own backbenchers that he changed his position. David Cameron is standing up for the interests of the UK. He is taking a hard-headed, pragmatic decision about what's in the UK's interests, and it's nice to have a Prime Minister that's doing that after years of Labour rule when they too would pretty much sign up to anything that was put in front of them.
Martin Callanan, thank you very much. I mean, Tokyo, there's been a lot of debate here about really what was